So I believe my discerning really began with my family. I always say I'm forever indebted to the parents the Lord gave me. I have a beautiful mother, a beautiful father, brother and sister who I look up to every day, great role models for me. And one thing I always say is my father taught me who the Lord was. He taught me, he put the fear of God in me, in a sense, and he always taught me to be just a humble man, humble gentleman of the Lord. And my mother taught me how to love him. And I think them two together displaying that kind of about the life of Jesus really helped me develop that relationship in order for me to grow. And I have a little story that I wanted to share about that. I was riding in the car one day. I was about 6 years old, and I was driving down, and I don't know what urged me to ask this, but my father was in the driver's seat and my mother was in the passenger seat. And I was sitting in the back, and I just looked at my dad and I said, "Dad," I said, "how much should I love the Lord?" And he kind of looked a little puzzled, and he looked back and he goes, "Well, Jojo," he said, "I think you should love the Lord with your whole heart." And I asked him, I said, "Well, Dad, do I love the Lord even more than I love you?" And he kind of laughed a little bit, and he said, "Yeah, Joe," he said, "you should love the Lord more than you love me." And I turned to my mother, and the woman who her baby should love above all things, she had a little smirk on her face knowing the question she was about to receive. And I said, "Mom, do I love the Lord even more than I love you?" And she kind of giggled, and I know she hated to say it, but she said, "Yeah, my baby," she's like, you love the Lord more than you love me." And it was that childlike love, that was so simple when you're a kid, and that really began my journey to do this, to say yes to the Lord and enter His priesthood. And of course, in high school, that's a lot more challenging to have that faith life. It's so simple, that simple love that you can give them as a kid. So, of course, in high school, there are things like your social life, things like baseball that got me, and different things that you make your own gods rather than serving the Lord and loving really Him above all things. And when I really finally said yes to the priesthood, it was after my Saul moment where I got knocked off my horse and I was blinded. And it was when my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer when I was going into my senior year in high school. And when I saw her, even the week before she died, when she's 80-something pounds, just so dependent on the Lord, and realizing that He is her only, thing she has, it was a childlike faith because it was very dependent. And I think that, I had to learn that I'm not going to be able to take care of everything. I can't control how my life is going to be. Eventually, I'll have to be dependent like a child on his mother and on his father. And, eventually when you're on your own and you make a decision in life, you're dependent fully on the Lord. And, her faith life through her sickness and death, showed me that that dependent thing is not something that makes me less of a man, but it makes me more of a man because I'm dependent on Jesus Christ, my Creator. And so eventually, I felt the call, after getting close to Him again, after experiencing that, and had to say yes. And a lot of people, can talk to me and they talk about, well, like, how scared were you? How scared were you in discerning? Like, how did you make this decision? And I think, that's what a lot of people struggle with. Like, a guy's out there, thinking, I'd like to do this, but like, I had to give up, my life. I had to give up my friends. I had to give up, future spouse or kids. And I have two responses for that kid out there, or for that man out there who's discerning the Lord. The first of which is fraternity, and the second one is the joy of the seminary. The first one, fraternity, and I know I'm going to step on some toes saying this, but I will put our fraternity of the Diocese of Little Rock, our 45 seminarians right now, I will put our brotherhood against any fraternity that this country has to offer. And it's not anything that we do, it's not anything that comes from us, but it's what our fraternity is rooted in. And our fraternity is rooted on Jesus Christ, on God and the cross and the crucifix. And we are bonded by our brokenness, and we are united by our diversity. And you just look at, fraternities, they have their ideal guy, they have their race, their whatever that they find their image in. And for us, you look at our seminarians, I always say we can represent half the World Cup, from the countries that we have. And it's very beautiful, though, because it's going to allow us to reach so many more people within our own diocese. And I say we're united by our diversity, because what is awesome to me is you go to the House of Formation and we're talking to the guys. Guys are helping each other learn Spanish words. Guys are helping each other learn English words, and we're dependent on each other. It's that same dependency that we show to Christ in our own faith life. We realize in our fraternity that we need each other and that we'll help each other out. And so many times, if you're fearing out there that, I'm not the best writer, I can't write papers very well, or you know what, I don't see myself as the most holy guy. Part of that fraternity is helping each other with our weaknesses. And so, for instance, you'll have a guy who's doing great, who has a lot of time on his hands to proofread a paper for another guy who's struggling, or, a guy wants to learn how to, shoot hoops, go play basketball. They'll spend time together to go help him do that. And just different aspects of life. You'll find yourself talking to guys that you'd never, think you'd be friends with in seminary, but all of a sudden, there's just this unity in our diversity. And the second point I wanted to mention about a guy who may be scared is if you enter seminary, you are entering one of the most joyous groups that you can think of. John Miskin, and I'm going to plagiarize him till the day I die on this quote, he says, "You never go through a day of seminary without hearing laughter. And it's so true. I think it's one of the most joyous groups that I've ever been a part of, and because it's rooted in Christ, it's rooted in the joy of the gospel. And just funny things happen. It's a brotherhood, like I said. You might be getting slammed one day, but you can turn around and make sure you're slamming another guy the next day about something funny he does. So it's just a solid brotherhood. It's full of laughter, and it's full of guys who care about others and who want to serve others. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Lastly, what can the people do, to support us? Well, I think a lot of times people are scared, like, so are y'all free? Like, when can y'all hang out? What are the, boundaries that y'all have? And one thing that I always say, and I want to recommend, just thank you and spend a moment of gratitude for the people of our diocese, because studying in Dallas, I see the different Sarah clubs, the different Knights of Columbus, the different auxiliary teams for formation and seminarians. And guys, ours is exponential. Ours is setting the standards for the entire nation. Our guys are getting letters from the schools. We're getting checks from the Knights of Columbus, which are awesome. We're getting letters just constantly of the people because they're aware of what we're about. And that's just a credit to our formation, our vocations team, that they've gotten that awareness out and the people care about us. And that's something that's very beautiful. Number two, and I'm not going to be afraid to say it, keep the financial support rolling. We need it. We're living kind of day by day to get our guys into seminary, but I want you to know we are working our tails off for y'all. And you see the young priests now, going after it, and that's where our heart is. We want to serve y'all, and we need your support, to make it through seminary. I always say some of my best memories of seminary will be, we have a long hallway where we all live, and there's a mailbox. We each have our own individual mailboxes. And one of my favorite days are when a guy gets a Knights of Columbus check or something like that, and he'll be running down the hallway like, I got one. And we'll all know that, that night he'll go buy us ice cream or a beer or something like that, because he just got the Knights of Columbus check. But guys, it brings joy to our hearts receiving letters. Anytime we know that the people are caring about us, it's just awesome. Also, I just spent a week or 2 weeks with the Ham Beacons up in Conway, and it's just a wonderful experience to just meet people, and they were just asking us about what we were about and where we came from, and it was just cool to develop those types of relationships with the people, because eventually in a parish when we're priests, it's going to be us and hopefully another priest and the people. And so the earlier we start those relationships, maybe go to dinners and make sure we go out to meet each other and hang out, I think that is very helpful. So if you can just show that you're there supporting us, that means the world to us. But God bless you. Thank you so much for all you do for us. And I promise that I will work my butt off to be a solid priest for this diocese. So thank you so much.